Welcome, everyone. Just one more minute. Just again, for those just arriving, make sure that your Zoom name piece that you have your name, full name and city so we can get you allotted to the right breakout rooms. Really, really fun program today. And I'm just excited that we're going to launch the kind of first extended session with the folks that you're going to hear from today. We're going to go from the sort of more abstract we talked about last session to now we're really going to get into how people are doing it on the ground. So I think with that, knowing how precious our time is, Melina, I think I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll just, well, again, say for those who don't know me, Brett Kincairn, I'm with the City of Boulder's Nature-Based Solutions team. I also have the great privilege of being a part of the Center for Regenerative Solutions and would now turn it over to my colleague from CRS, Elena Ignacio.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Just want to take a few minutes again to thank our funders and partners for the continued support of our GSI Accelerator program. And just want to walk through the agenda for today. So again, great to see you all. I know we might be joined by folks whose this might be their first session, so please continue to introduce yourselves in the chat. We'll start with a quick 6-question green infrastructure funding priority survey, and we'll get into that later, followed by a case study presentations from the City of Boston and King County and Dirt Corps partnerships. And then afterwards, we'll move into a team breakout activity where you'll all get a chance to reflect on key insights from today's presentations with your multi-stakeholder team and kind of then wrap up with just some closing remarks and next steps. And one thing to note is we do have a really packed session today, and we did hear you in our feedback that we received from session 1 that it's going to be challenging in these next couple of sessions to do some Q&A time, but we are taking some of that feedback and doing some rearranging in the future sessions. So although this session may not have time for Q&A between our presenters, we are going to make sure that you guys do have some time in future sessions to do that. So just like last time, if you do have any questions for the presenters, feel free to drop them in the chat. And I believe some of our presenters after their presentations may have some time to engage with you in the chat. But if they're not able to answer any of your questions, we'll be capturing those and do our best to follow up with you all with some responses from today.
And just to help this emphasize, we're listening, and the end of session surveys are really important to us. And we got great feedback from many of you last time. So thank you. And thank you. Keep it integrating that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's just introduce. I'm excited to kind of introduce our phenomenal speakers today. We'll be hearing from Kate England, Director of Green Infrastructure for the City of Boston, Jessica Engel, Rainscapes Program Manager for King County's Department of Natural Resources and Parks, and as well, we'll also hear from Roseanne Barnhill, the Rainscapes, who's also, the Director of Ecology and Green Infrastructure at Dirt Corps. And so before we get rolling with today's presentations, we want to first start by using and creating some time, and we'd love to have you all complete a green infrastructure funding priority surveys. It's just a quick 6-question survey on what funding opportunities you may be interested in learning more about. And this survey, your responses from today's survey are going to really help us tailor the opening session of module 3. So in the next 10 minutes or so, if you could please, I'm going to drop the survey in the chat. Please take a moment to complete this quick survey. Again, your responses will help us with the upcoming session. So I'm going to give us about 10 minutes. Let me know if you have any issues accessing that survey. And I'll drop it again.
Yeah, just to, again, echo Elena, the folks from EPA and others who are joining us in the last module are really keen to make sure that they bring the right people to that session to respond to what you're most interested in hearing about in terms of policy and resources. So your feedback is invaluable in helping them shape that set of sessions.
And then once you're done, feel free to just put in the chat a quick thumbs up or give a thumbs up reaction on the Zoom. But just give everybody at least 5 more minutes to kind of work through those questions.
For those who are just joining, there's a chat we'll put in the chat I'm sorry, there's a survey we'll put in the chat again that's helping us shape the last module around policy and financial mechanisms. So please open that up and give us your quick feedback there.
Okay, I see some responses coming in. Great.
If you're just joining us, there's a survey that's in the chat that folks are finishing up.
Great, we're doing great. So you've got about 60. Thanks. And then in the chat, if it's a completely anonymous survey, so if you don't have to list include your email or your name if you don't want to. Looking good. So giving everybody 3 more minutes. Thanks, Basil. Thanks, Gregory. So if you're just joined us, we have a couple folks who are coming in. We are just taking some time. If you could please complete just this quick 6-question survey around funding opportunities, whether that be federal, state, or local that you're interested in learning more about. We'll be using taking these responses and your feedback to help us tailor our upcoming session for Module 3 on funding opportunities. Great. Okay, this looks good. Okay, thank you all so much for taking the time to complete this quick survey. And so please continue to, if you're still in the midst of it, that's okay. Take your time, but we'll now kind of get started. And let's see. I'd now like to introduce and welcome Kate England. She is the inaugural Director of Green Infrastructure for the City of Boston. Kate was appointed by Mayor Michelle Wu in July 2022 to facilitate widespread implementation of green infrastructure and help pursue the resilience goals outlined in the Boston's Green New Deal. And with that, Kate, I'll open the floor to you.
Great, thanks so much. All right, everybody, I'm going to share my screen real quick. It's really nice to meet you all. Thank you for the introduction. Of course, I have a million screens up, and I think there we go. Doesn't know which one to do. So I am going to spend a little bit of time today talking about some of the kind of key elements of the program and the office that I'm building here, and how it might be useful or at least of interest to others who are in similar positions in this kind of early stages of building your program, or maybe your program has existed for quite some time and now you're trying to move into large-scale implementation of GI. Maybe you're trying to move into better management, cross-departmental collaboration. So I'm hoping that some of my examples will be useful. And also all the photos in the presentation have a little like, where are they from down at the bottom, just so that you can all see, and they're all green infrastructure features in Boston. So this is Harambee Park. It's one of our parks. All right, so the city of Boston kind of historically had not done a whole lot with stormwater because the Boston Water and Sewer Commission was our kind of stormwater management entity. They're our water utility for the city, but they are not a city department. So the commission is it's called a subdivision of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which means it's actually a state department, not a city department. And so the city hadn't really done a whole lot, in the world of stormwater management or green infrastructure. So when my position was created and I, kind of built this office, one of the things that we wanted to focus on was all of the various co-benefits of green infrastructure. So rather than just thinking about green infrastructure as stormwater management, my office and my team really focuses on green infrastructure as serving multiple benefits and having all of these different wonderful attributes. So I'm not going to read them all, but we're looking at green infrastructure as a way to help increase our urban tree canopy. We're looking at it to help reduce our urban heat island effect. Much of our city is very heavily affected by that. We are looking for slower, safer streets and pedestrian and cyclist safety. Biodiversity, I'm actually reading them all. I'm going to stop. But the idea here is that green infrastructure does more than just stormwater management and flood mitigation. It does all of these other wonderful things. So the first thing I wanted to share with you is 2 years ago in October, so just a couple of months after I joined the city, I created a right-of-way green infrastructure policy. I think we would all like to believe that people will implement green infrastructure because it is wonderful and has benefits and is the right thing to do. But as many of us have probably discovered in our careers, sometimes you do have to start with regulation. So this policy that we put in place, it requires green infrastructure for right-of-way projects. So projects that are done by our Public Works and Boston Transportation Department. It requires one of 5 GI design alternatives. So what you're seeing on the screen is right-of-way bioretention, which includes bioswales, rain gardens, the full kind of suite of bioretention, infiltration tree pits or tree trenches, porous paving materials, and there are many, subsurface infiltration areas, so infiltration that happens entirely underground with no surface components, and then one-time seeding, but that's really just like stormwater planters where like water can flow into a vegetated space and it accepts that stormwater. And then the other part of the policy was something that I felt very strongly about, was providing operations and maintenance mechanisms that will allow us to maintain green infrastructure across the city. So the policy committed the city to always having 2 maintenance contracts and a green infrastructure volunteer program. I'll talk a little bit about both as we move through this. So this is the original version of the policy. It went into effect in October of 2022. We have, it's like 20 projects that are going into construction this year from the Streets Cabinet that have green infrastructure in them that wouldn't have without this policy. And we're currently working on revamping, revising the policy to expand its influence and provide a little bit more guidance for the kinds of green infrastructure that we're looking for in these projects. So just wanted to show you a couple pictures. This is Central Square in East Boston. So you can see in this image, there's a series, there's a couple of different types of green infrastructure here. There's tree infiltration trenches on the right side that created this beautiful tree alley. The trees in this photo are only a couple of years old. Just to give you an indication, they were 2-inch caliper when they went in, and they are now 6 to 8 in some areas and almost 10-inch caliper in others. And the project was completed 6 years ago. So it's really amazing tree growth. And then you're also seeing porous paver installations and other tree pits and things like that in this picture. And then this is one of our more densely or like more heavily trafficked areas. And so here you can see some of our right-of-way bioswales, and we've been able to fit them into even the weirdest shaped intersections, which we have many of in Boston. The second thing that I wanted to talk more about was those maintenance contracts that I mentioned. We live in a world where the most common reason or the most common no that we receive around green infrastructure is because we don't know how to maintain it or we don't have the resources to maintain it. And, being in this field for as long as I have, I had heard that enough times to realize that we needed a real solution. And so as part of the right-of-way policy, we wanted to remove maintenance as a barrier. And so the policy commits us to provide 2 maintenance contracts at all times. And so the first is a landscape maintenance contract, and that focuses on the vegetated components of our green infrastructure. And then the second is a porous paving maintenance contract. And so that allows us to maintain our porous pavers, porous asphalts, porous concretes, resin-bound stones, and the full kind of suite of porous paving materials. And the cool and interesting part about this or these contracts is that they maintain green infrastructure across the city, meaning it doesn't matter if the porous asphalt is in the right-of-way or in a park or at a library, the maintenance contracts can be used to do maintenance on those sites. So we're currently performing maintenance in a variety of departments: Boston Public Libraries, parks, BPS, public schools, transportation, for Boston Water and Sewer, and for Public Works. And then we also wanted to procure these contracts in a way that would allow us to have a little bit more say over who won the contract. We're all, I assume most, if not all of us, are municipal employees, which means that we're all beholden to public procurement law, which makes it very difficult sometimes. And we often end up with contractors who are low bidding and undercutting local contracts. And so one of the things that we tried that actually ended up working really well was, rather than doing a solicitation through a standard bid process, which is low bid and based solely on the unit cost and item cost that a contractor proposes, we did this via RFP, which means it's a request for proposals. And we review the proposals based on a series of qualifications and the way that they're proposing to do the services, rather than selecting based on the prices provided. And so we were able to select a contractor who actually has been incredible and has been with us for 2 years now. They do a lot of support work with us in our Power Core program. They help us with volunteer events and with community plantings and buildings, which we'll talk about more in a second. And so we were able to get these kind of additional services, these additional community benefits that we probably wouldn't have gotten out of a standard low bid contract. And then the second kind of way we've tried to do this is through using our city certified businesses list. And so in the city of Boston, we have a list of vendors who are certified businesses. They are DEI owned businesses, which means typically minority and women owned businesses. And we have a law in the city of Boston that allows us to do a 3-quote solicitation for a proposal. And the dollar value limit for us is 250,000 K. So you can do a maintenance contract, for example, through a 3-quote system up to a value of 250,000, and you can do it through DEI owned businesses from our certified businesses list. So it ensures that our contracts are going into the hands of businesses that are local, that are DEI owned, that frequently have very strong connections to our neighborhoods and our communities that, the green infrastructure exists within. And it's been a really wonderful shift away from, historically having contractors from outside of the city come in, low bid, undercut, and not having the same investment in our neighborhoods that our local contractors do. So just a couple of images. This is Parterre, which is our maintenance contractor, working on one of our rain gardens in PVD Square with some Power Core folks. And then this is another Parterre's in the background and is doing work in the East Boston Greenway. This is one of our rain gardens down the center of the Greenway, which accepts runoff from our 2 adjacent paved paths. Another thing that we thought was really important was making sure that we are supporting all departments with our work. So what does this mean for Boston and for our program? So I like to say this all the time. I'm sure that people hear it from leadership quite often, but we really mean it when we say it. We're all in this together. And so we operate a green infrastructure working group at the City of Boston, where we have bi-monthly large, overall meetings, as well as bi-weekly smaller convenings that are kind of topic or subject based. So we have the 3 subgroups are our coordination and maintenance group, which is exactly what it sounds like. It has representatives from a bunch of different departments, and we talk about how to maintain and coordinate our projects. We have a details and specifications group that has focused on helping us to produce our standard details and specifications, which have been incredibly helpful. And then we also have a policy group, which has helped us revise the right-of-way policy, and we're creating new policies for open space and other types of green infrastructure installations in the city. So we currently have over 20 city departments are represented in these working groups. And I think the last time we counted, we had 64, 65 members. So it's a really nice cross-section of city staff. And we get lots of feedback from lots of different types of departments. We also do capital requests for other departments. So because of the way my office is set up, I'm in a position where I'm able to request funding for other departments' projects. So as an example, last year, the Public Works Department did a large corridor redesign on Cummins Highway in Mattapan, which is one of our southern neighborhoods. And the project required additional funding to install all the green infrastructure that we had designed into this corridor redesign. We're just to give you an indication, it's 26 new bioretention areas, 2 porous asphalt bike lanes down the length of the entire path that they're separated and protected. It's a lot of really wonderful, green infrastructure for this neighborhood. So we made a request, my office made a request to our budget management office for $5 million to support Cummins Highway, in addition to the money they had already requested, and it was awarded. And so the money essentially is now going to support the construction of green infrastructure, which is supposed to be complete in the next couple of months. So I'll show you pictures of that sometime soon. And then the last thing we do is we construct green infrastructure with other departments all the time. One of my friends just walked by. And so the way that we do this is we do collaborative cross-department projects. So I mentioned the project that Cummins Highway with Public Works. We do lots of projects with parks. We do lots of projects with Boston Transportation, with our school department. And it has really changed the way people are thinking about green infrastructure, because having someone like myself come in and provide guidance and help talk to consultants and help review plans that others may not feel as comfortable reviewing because they're not as familiar with green infrastructure, allows our project managers and other departments to feel comfortable adding it to their work. And so, like I said, we've got 20 projects in construction right now that all have GI in them that wouldn't have before, as well as a suite of others across our parks and school departments as well. So just some images of us building green infrastructure with other departments. So this is Boston Public Schools, and as you can see, lots of adorable tiny humans. We really love to try to engage children and teens at all of our sites for all of the work that we're doing. Kids are wonderful little planters. They really enjoy being part of the construction of these features, and then they, kind of have that sense of pride and ownership as the features grow and develop. And then this is in front of one of our libraries. This is the East Boston Public Library branch. And so we have these beautiful rain gardens that kind of go down the entire length of the library, which makes the approach to the library really shaded and quiet and separated from traffic. And it's a really nice change from what it was in the past. All right, two more quick things. So I wanted to talk briefly about our Boston Housing Authority. I assume that many of our cities have housing authorities in them. Our Boston Housing Authority is kind of like a quasi-public entity, which means they're technically federal funded and they're federal. They're not really city, but they're kind of a city department too. And so my office has done a lot to support our BHA. And essentially this support and collaboration has resulted in BHA hiring their own green infrastructure staff. And so the reason that we identified BHA is in addition to housing many of our most vulnerable residents in their housing developments, they're also one of the largest landowners in the city, which means that they have a lot of opportunity and a lot of land to do this kind of work. So over the first year that I was here, so back in 2022 into like 2023, I consulted on their sustainability strategy, gave them some advice and guidance, helped them deal with the brand new Boston Water and Sewer stormwater fee and talk them through how to apply for credits and all the kind of complex things that come with a new stormwater fee. We support their youth, their BHA Summer Youth Council, and have planted trees and gardens and things with the children and other youth at BHA housing developments. And so in June of 2024, BHA hired their very own GI staffer because they wanted to have a person at BHA who could coordinate with us, but also lead a lot of BHA's efforts from the inside. So his name is Bobby, and he's wonderful. He works with BHA engineering, but also supports their operations and maintenance team. And he has been part of so many projects so far, and he's only been here for a couple of months. So really excited to see him and loved hearing from BHA that it was the exposure and the collaboration, around green infrastructure that really showed them that they needed their own staffers to take this work on internally. So another example of us planting trees and rain gardens with BHA students. These are kids from the Archdale. Oh shoot, that's the wrong label. Sorry, this is the Archdale, not Franklin Field. And then this is Franklin Field over in Dorchester. So again, really love to engage our youth in this work, our communities in this work. Makes a huge difference for how our projects are received, and then also results in people asking for more green infrastructure in the future. Okay, last but not least, community support, which we've kind of been talking about the whole time. So one of the things that I try to do is when the community reaches out to ask about, hey, can we have green infrastructure? I say yes as often as possible. It is really amazing to me to hear the number of times people reach out and are interested in installing green infrastructure in a park, at a school, outside of a library, on our greenways. And so one of the things that has been really wonderful is the creative ways that we have figured out to install green infrastructure. So I have a couple of examples on the screen, and it indicates who the community partner and the municipal or like government-esque partner was. And so the image that you're seeing on the screen right now, this is the West Street Urban Wild. It is technically a Boston Parks site in Hyde Park, and we were able to install a linear bioswale that runs down the edge of the roadway with the Epic Service Warriors and our Neponset River Watershed Association. Our Epic Service Warriors are a leadership organization for young people with disabilities in Boston. And the Neponset River Watershed Association is, of course, a watershed association, but they do a lot of work in our communities. And so we also have, in addition to these kind of community programs that we run and these community builds that we do, we also have a GI volunteer program that we launched, which has been amazing. So residents of the city of Boston, actually, we do have some non-residents too. So people who live, work, and play in Boston are able to adopt one of our public green infrastructure features and perform, it's mostly beautification, weeding and litter removal and things like that, but perform maintenance on our green infrastructure in the city. The volunteer program does not replace the maintenance contracts. The maintenance contracts still go out and do their standard monthly and or more often than monthly maintenance. But the point of the program was to engage the community and allow them to kind of be our eyes in the field. And it has resulted in a lot of really wonderful community love for green infrastructure. We get a lot of pictures and a lot of information about the green infrastructure that we weren't getting before that has helped us to really keep them functioning and looking great. So just a couple of images. This is the Epic Service Warriors planting the bioswale that you saw on the previous page. And then this is the beginning of our volunteer program. Our Epic Service Warriors were one of our first groups to sign up to be volunteers. All right, I'm going to stop there. I'm sorry, I should have checked time, but thank you all for giving me a minute to talk to you about the cool stuff that we're doing, and happy to answer questions and provide follow-up answers after this as well.
Thank you so much, Kate. Looks like there is already tons of questions in the chat for you.
All right, I'll work on responding to them.
Great. All righty. Great. Okay, so we'll keep rolling along. All right, so I'd now like to welcome Jessica Engel. Jessica is a water quality planner for King County's stormwater service section, as well as the Rainscapes program manager for King County's Department of Natural Resources and Parks.
Thanks, Elena. Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here and to share with you a little bit of information about how I developed the Rainscapes program, which is a voluntary program. We don't have any permit or regulatory drivers to do this program, but it's all about getting green stormwater infrastructure on private property across King County. So for those of you not familiar with King County, we are the county that the city of Seattle resides in. We have just under 2.3 million people, and we are a huge county. So we have urban, rural, suburban areas, and we've got a lot of people to get GSI in the ground for. So slides are taking a minute here. Elena, are you seeing my slides advanced? Oh, there we go. Okay. So in the unincorporated areas, we have a lack of stormwater controls on a lot of our private property, because back in the early 1990s was when our developers were required to add stormwater controls to all new development. Oops. And so we have a lot of private property that lacks those stormwater controls. So in an attempt to incentivize private property owners to add stormwater controls, we decided to seek out an opportunity to do GSI incentives for private property owners. So it's just for unincorporated King County property owners. We don't do any incorporated city work. And as I said, it's a voluntary program. We are funded with a surface water management fee that our taxpayers pay into so that we can manage stormwater across the unincorporated region. So it is a bit of giving tax money back to our property owners that are giving it for stormwater management. So we have never done anything quite like this. We've not done construction on private property. So when our section was tasked to do this, I decided to start with a lot of lessons learned from existing GSI programs across the Puget Sound area, what has worked. Oops, sorry, everybody, my slides are going a little nuts. What has worked, what hasn't worked, what were barriers to the GSI incentive programs in existence. And then we also have a GSI incentive program in the city of Seattle. It's a partnership between Seattle Public Utilities and our King County Wastewater Treatment Division that aims to reduce combined sewer overflows in the city of Seattle region. And so we had a lot of push from our upper management to market the Rainscapes program very similarly and lay the program out very similarly. But I wanted to take time to really understand our intended audience, since unincorporated King County is very different from the city of Seattle. So I also wanted to do some social marketing research to understand who we are servicing and how they want to see the program laid out. So the audience research and GSI lessons learned was all about how do we actually lay the program out? Should it be a rebate style? How do we hire contractors? How do we get the most participation and reduce the most barriers to this work? From there, the plan was to actually install pilot projects. That way we understood internally what it took to do this work. So how many staff hours would it take? How do we hire contractors? How do we do the engineering and design? All of the legal and liability paperwork that goes into doing work on private property. So all of the nooks and crannies and nuts and bolts to developing a project like this. And then from there, we would roll out the program. And at the beginning, we thought we would do some pilot projects, and then we would have to go out and actually market the program and do a lot of outreach to the areas that we saw would have the most benefit for GSI incentives. And I'll talk a little bit about that, but we actually have the reverse problem. We have more property owners than we can handle right now, and great problem to have, but I'll talk a little bit about that in the future here in this presentation. So the social marketing that we did, we ended up looking at 6 different sub areas. We did focus groups and we hired some consultants to do the work. That way property owners felt more comfortable talking to a third party and not us directly. And we did them in multiple languages, trying to make it as accessible as possible. And we learned a whole bunch from our intended audience on how to lay out the program. So we asked people different variations of incentive programs that already existed and what they liked about it and what they didn't like. And we heard loud and clear that doing any type of rebate style program created a lot of barriers for people's participation. A lot of people don't have the money up front to then get paid back later. So people wanted to see a cost share style program, or for King County to handle the hiring of the contractors and all of the permitting up front. And then if there was anything that the property owner had to pay afterwards, they would understand that at the beginning. People liked the idea of having a King Conservation District or a nonprofit be the face of the program so that they didn't have to work with us directly. A lot of people are very hesitant to have King County out on their site. If you work for government, I'm sure you understand that. And so that was a big barrier to participation, people just being a little bit worried about working with us directly. Maintenance barriers, I'm glad to hear that Kate also experienced that in Boston. We heard that loud and clear, that people are a little bit hesitant to actually take over a GSI feature on their property. They want to make sure they can maintain it effectively, understand how to maintain it for the duration of the policy with us or the participation with us on the program. And that maintenance can also be very expensive. So that's also a big barrier for people to participate. We also heard from people that if we were utilizing veterans crews or people who are looking to break into the green job market, they would be much more excited to participate. So as I said, we have a lot of people in rural unincorporated King County that have big pieces of land that don't necessarily need additional stormwater controls, but would very much support hiring of veteran crews or people breaking into the market to do work on their property. We also have people who are a little bit hesitant to work with us in general that also said that that would be the way to get in and participate in the program. So we were excited to hear that. And then a lot of people said to us that they're concerned about how much development is happening in their neighborhoods and within their communities. And they really felt that they wanted to participate in solutions to that. They saw extra flooding happening on their streets, or they saw all new housing developments going in and were concerned about what that was doing to their local environment. And they felt that having a program like this allowed them to participate in solutions. So they were excited about that. So we took all of this information and this is how we laid out our pilot projects. So what we ended up doing is we decided we were going to cover 100% of the upfront costs to property owners, knowing that there's going to be maintenance considerations long-term for them. And we work with them to really understand what those maintenance components are. And we also set up our projects so that the first year of maintenance after we install the feature, we actually help train the people on the maintenance so that they feel very comfortable taking it over. And then from there, we're just kind of on call as technical assistance folks. And we work really closely with Dirt Corps. They're our main contractor. You're going to hear from Roseanne. They are absolutely amazing. And they have a really great green job training program. So we are trying to utilize every single project as an opportunity to train people who are trying to get into the market. We were working with our neighbors to the north of the Snohomish Conservation District. Also, they have a really great veteran rain garden program that's unfortunately no longer in existence, but we were trying to model something similar in our program, hiring veterans. And so we were really excited to hear that people wanted more of that, and it's really taken off and gained a lot of momentum. So we've got lots of accomplishments to date. This is a picture of one of the Dirt Corps instructors, Veronica, who was absolutely amazing to work with, and so amazing that King County stole her and hired her for a job in our Parks Department. But this is a picture of one of the cisterns on a private property that was installed. And it was a project that green job training cohorts were part of the installation. So they learned how to do a cistern install on this private property. So this is just one of many that we've done with Dirt Corps. And the program offers cisterns, rain gardens. We also offer tree planting, and we also offer de-paving of hardscapes and replacing it with bioretention. We get a lot of interest in cisterns. So as I said, we've got lots of people who live in our rural areas. Several of them are on limited budgets, and some people have wells and they're trying to grow their own food. And so they're looking to save a lot of money on water and be as environmentally conscious as possible. So we get a lot of interest in cisterns. In our more urban areas, we get a lot of interest in rain gardens. People are looking to beautify their property or add some green space in a very concrete jungle world that they're living in. So we have so far to date 27 GSI installations in the ground. We've done 2 pilot tree giveaways that have also been part of a larger 30-year forest plan that's part of our strategic climate action plan. And the 2 pilot tree giveaways were done in areas where we have the lowest tree canopy cover. So we've got a lot of overlap with some of our urban heat island initiatives and climate initiatives with this program. So we've been able to fund those pilot giveaways, and we've gotten a lot of interest in them. And I know you're probably thinking, wow, 27 installations isn't a whole lot. One of the issues we're up against is when we were asked to pilot this program, obviously we're told show that there's interest. And what's happened is we've gained so much momentum with interest without doing really any marketing of the program at all. We now have over 120 people waitlisted, but we have a very, very small budget. So we have about 250,000 per biennium, which is peanuts compared to most of the GSI programs in the Puget Sound area, and I would say probably across the US. And so our budgets have not been able to keep up with demand, and our budgets are very tied to our permit compliance, our municipal stormwater permit compliance. So because this is a voluntary program, it usually takes a back seat when we're asking for more budget to do this. So we've got lots of angry property owners who've been sitting on a wait list for over a year. And what we've been doing is encouraging people to reach out to their county council members to kind of, vocalize their frustrations with the lack of budget for this program, because we do have so much interest. We have also partnered with our, as I said, Snohomish Conservation District, as well as our King Conservation District. We got a grant to install 9 rain gardens in White Center, which is one of our more urban areas. And we were able to learn a lot from their veteran crew program and just how quick and easy they're able to install rain gardens. So we took a lot from their strategies and implemented them into our program, especially with the veteran crews. As I said, we're using pretty much all of our properties as an opportunity for Dirt Corps to implement the Green Jobs training program that they already had in existence, as well as a King County Green Start program where we hired people who are experiencing homelessness that were looking to break into the job market. And that was a really amazing partnership. Dirt Corps oversaw all of the hiring and the members of that team, several of which have moved on to get jobs either with Dirt Corps or with King County or other organizations who are doing similar work, which has been really amazing. And we work really closely with some of our internal agencies. We work with our wastewater treatment division, who, as I said, has Rain Wise, which is a green infrastructure program to reduce combined sewer overflows. They pretty much laid out the groundwork for a lot of the barriers to procurement and hiring of contractors that we were also experiencing. So we've partnered very closely with them to put together some, I would say, maybe bypasses to some of those barriers of doing great work, like hiring Dirt Corps and doing the green job training program. So we've set up contracts more like a grant. So we have a lot more flexibility in being able to hire small organizations like Dirt Corps that align very well with our values and our missions and our goals for the program, like green job training opportunities, as well as some of the co-benefits that we're trying to offer through our projects. And it's just broken down a lot of the internal barriers, but also it's been great because we've tried to help other organizations and municipalities doing similar work with some of those barriers that they're experiencing building similar GSI programs. We also work really closely with our Parks Department so that we can do green stormwater infrastructure marketing to a lot of the people that our Parks Department is talking to out in communities. We work really closely with community members, and we have a Department of Local Services that's pretty much the lead on community engagement. And so whenever they're out doing tabling events, and they host a lot of events and community meetings, we go out and talk to people about what it is that we're trying to do. we're in a bit of a conundrum right now because we're trying not to market the program very loudly because we are in this pickle of not having enough budget to accommodate everybody who's signing up. But we want to make sure that it's accessible to everybody. And we are trying to target some of our more urban areas that have the highest concentrations of water pollution and water quality concerns and high urban heat island impacts. So we're trying to target those areas right now. And then the benefits of Rainscapes. I love that Kate also touched on co-benefits. We're obviously providing water quality and flow control retrofits to properties that don't have existing stormwater controls. We're also having property owners report back just huge cost savings, particularly in the water savings, not having to use potable water for gardens and other areas of their yard. So like I said, lots of cisterns. We're also seeing improvements to people's home values, adding beautification of rain gardens and trees. We also have people who are in areas that are prone to wildfire that are using their cistern water for fire suppression, also groundwater recharge, as I said, urban heat island reductions, and then the potable water savings. And the green jobs part of it is what I'm most excited about. As you see, we've got lots of collaboration that brought this Rainscapes program together. And I'm excited for you all to hear from Roseanne from Dirt Corps, because the green job component that they bring to the table has just been a huge reason why this program is so successful. And we have so many people very excited to participate in Rainscapes overall. So that is what I have for you. And I'm excited to see the questions going on in the chat. And, oh, sorry.
Could I ask a question just on chat, or is there time for that?
We actually have one more presenter. Jessica's just about to introduce her partner. But please feel free to put that in the chat.
Yes, so I get to introduce Roseanne from Dirt Corps. Roseanne Barnhill, she's the principal and director of ecology and green stormwater infrastructure at Dirt Corps. And I can't say enough about Roseanne. I came to Dirt Corps as our main contractor when the program started, and not only has Roseanne helped with the development of the program and just making it as successful as it is, but Roseanne always has this very go-to attitude. I can throw her crazy ideas and she's always like, yes, let's make it happen. And just very thoughtful in her approach to everything, very community centered, and how to bring as many people into green infrastructure as possible and do it in a very meaningful way that hits home for the communities that we're serving. So I'm excited for you to hear more from Roseanne.
Thank you, Jessica. And I was having some video issues earlier, so if I start to sound jaggedy, please let me know. Let's see. Go ahead and share my screen. So we are a green jobs training program. We are a small business based in a frontline community in Seattle. We are a business because we wanted to figure out how to be a small business rather than a nonprofit. One of our main missions is to train people and also support small business development. As you all know, contracting, it's already come up in this conversation, can be very difficult. So we're using our own process to be a model. And so I'm going to talk about how programs like Rainscapes actually built our company into being able to be a job training program. So we started in 2014. We are along the Duwamish River, which is a super fun site with a lot of disadvantaged communities that are along the river. Green infrastructure, voluntary projects were coming in and being built via grant systems, but there was no maintenance. It was a build it, this is great, and leave kind of process. The communities wanted to understand what these projects were. They wanted to have ownership, and they wanted to be able to work on it. So we got a grant through King County through our waste treatment facilities, or a division, and the Rainwise program to do a job training program. Our first cohort was youth. They were 13 to 17. They were absolutely amazing. And as with all great ideas, we realized at the end of it, it wasn't a great idea because they were too young to have jobs. So we partnered with a local organization and they created a youth green training program that still exists and is thriving. And then we started training the adults. Many of those young people that were in that first cohort became trainers of some of the youth programs, and our adult and youth programs continue to integrate and do green infrastructure. So we started getting more grants and community partners started reaching out, wanting support. Places of worship, neighborhood centers that had green infrastructure. They didn't have maintenance. They didn't have the understanding of their facilities. So we would continue to have paid, everybody is paid. It's a very important tenet for us. Paid training opportunities of 4 to 6 weeks where people would learn hands-on skills by working on facilities. We started getting more partnerships. It turns out that maintenance was a really important need. We started building what we call big roof projects, again, working on like roofs of buildings that are like 5,000 square foot, then it was 10,000, then 15,000 square foot, then industrial warehouses, roadside bioswales, depaving. The projects keep getting more complicated and the partnerships keep growing. But there's always this community-centered piece. So as we would get agency contracts to either do design build, workforce development, or O&M, we would always have community projects embedded into those. We started working more with King County to have workforce development be embedded in capital projects. So with a new there was a new regional waste facility being built, and there was a training program embedded in that. With the partnerships of programs like Rainscapes and its sister program, Rainwise, which is the inner Seattle CSO program, we've received long-term funding that supports the workforce development. People who want to break into this job frequently are income insecure. They need to be able to feel safe and they need to see a future within making that transition. So having paid positions that can lead into crew positions that we will actually hire from our training program. Many of our folks go into jobs with our partners. So the long-lasting workforce development and integration partnerships that we've been able to build have presented a beautiful streamline into what we call the GSI ecosystem, where more and more people are going into the field because they feel secure with that. So at this point, I think we've been working now with Jessica for 4 years, 5 years now, Jessica. And these job training programs are really, really critical because people need to be able to learn at their pace. Our programs are multilingual, different modalities of learning, lots of visuals. We worked with the Job and Housing program, and we're doing another cohort with the Jobs and Housing program, which is a special kind of training program because people who are housing insecure need different services and supports that someone, you know, who's just come out of college might have who has housing. So trying to bring the training program to where people are at. So at this point, we're training and employing about 100 people a year through our training programs. And we've recently partnered with a number of different agencies. I see some Pierce County folks here that were part of this, different counties and agencies to build a Western Washington curriculum. And so we took all of our skills and all of these trainings that we've done and built over the years with Rainscapes and shared that curriculum to build a regional curriculum that'll have a certificate program. And now what we're doing is mentoring the organizations that are running the new training programs. And we're also one of those pilots. So this long-term investment just built this entire far-ranging pathway that's really exciting. And as Jessica mentioned, a lot of our folks end up at King County, which is really great. Sad for us, but great for them. So I talked about this a lot, that these government contracts are essential. Being able to have our communities be the workers who build the infrastructure of the city is super critical. Not only do they get really incredible practical experience, they get the lived experience of watching them grow. They have ownership. They know somebody who worked on that project. It doesn't become this thing that just lands in the middle of the street that nobody has connection to. People who come to our program have no experience. They don't know how to use tools. Some people have never gardened. They might be from a culture where gardening or working with the land is a different experience. So everybody tries a little bit of community organizing, education, urban forestry, classic restoration, working on rivers and green infrastructure. You get a little bit of taste, and then folks can then spread out from there. And we're huge proponents of paid training at a living wage. So we pay our trainees very close to what you would get at that job with a local contractor. And again, it's the grant process of Brainscapes to allow people to learn. Their job is learning, is a really critical piece. So this is this beautiful graphic that we did with a company called Methuen for the Landscape Architecture Foundation. And I thought I would share it because a lot of people ask us, how do you build workforce development? How do you engage community? And a typical process that had been the model was see a need for stormwater controls, get funding, build a project, spend a lot of time building and designing the project, and then doing some outreach, a couple of outreach events to tell the community that may or may not be at a time or a place and the community can engage, and then kind of finishing the project and going. And I really appreciate Boston's approach to encouraging these different opportunities for people to engage and understand that green infrastructure is trees, it is education, it is this participatory thing. It has all of these incredible benefits. So when we do a program, we have usually a community advocate who says, we need a project here. Again, we're working in a Superfund area. Primarily, that's our home. And so health impacts and environmental concerns are very much at the forefront of our partners. So when they call, we come and we build what they ask us to build. And then we teach the youth, and then we care for them, and we find the funding to do that. And when we focus on the community-driven projects, we can bring the capital projects with them. They can be side by side throughout that process. The community gets what they need, and the agencies get what they need. And throughout it, we're building the capacity. We're building the small businesses. We're building the nurseries. We're building the workers, the designers, the maintainers. And then at the point where we are now, my former trainees are now the teachers. They're the small businesses. They're taking over. I'm helping mentor them when they need technical experience, but they're doing all the work out in the field and building up the next generation. So we're seeing this really beautiful circular thing happen. And again, here's a timeline that really brings it in, is that the change makers and the advocates and the community enablers are right there in the beginning when it starts. The youth engagement is a part of the early part. In the construction, it's building those small businesses, building contracts for small business and work so that businesses can say, green infrastructure is a place where I could make a good living. I can get skills. I have technical support. I see a future here. I want to build this as a business. some of our former trainees have started their own businesses, and two of our former trainees, BIPOC women, are in the top 5 producers of green infrastructure installations in the Rainwise program of the city of Seattle. So all they needed was that a little bit of training and a chance, and they took it from there and just went running. And again, are still mentoring people. As we do this work, we start to see where the skills lie. What are other skills that we need to bring in? We're changing some of our training materials to be online or digital. We're filming, like my next project is filming how to do an infiltration test so that other people can watch, and changing our educational materials to be more accessible to people. And skill sharing, there's so much work and there's so much need that we don't have to be competitive. And so it really builds this system where contractors can work with each other and we can come together and share. And it prevents those silos of I can't talk to you because I might lose work if I share what I know, which is a really great thing. And the people. So, the Dirt Corps program through these contracts have created these positions, and these are the people that we work with now. Our partners have come through workforce development. They're in every every organization that we work with, and some of our agencies. And I would say that if your project doesn't include all of these people, then there's an opportunity that you're missing to engage all of these folks and to support these careers being built. So here are some of the projects that we've built with Jessica. We've done private property cisterns with our jobs and housing program, demonstration rain gardens at community farms. We go back and do horticultural trainings at our former rain gardens. So digging out all of the sedges and rushes that grew together, pulling them out, taking them to the next rain garden or a community project that doesn't have funding. Learning the specifications and learning some engineering. All of our folks get a little bit of soil science, a little bit of ecology, hydrology, and some of the engineering pieces, as well as construction skills, how to build something. So when you bring a lot of different people together, people are sharing those skill sets. People don't feel like they can do green infrastructure because there's so many things that they have to know. This is an opportunity to build those mentorships, and where people can say, I need help with plants, or I need help with pouring concrete. And a lot of our trainees have formed communities where they get together on a regular basis and connect and share those things. With Jessica, some of our projects have been able to be larger scale, such as this project at a church where a lot of the church building and the pavement were rerouted into a stormwater control facility. It's been a really great experience. It's, again, like I said, the long-term investment creates that pathway, and paying people. If we think about how we are engaged, all of us, I'm sure, have volunteer opportunities that we do, and volunteerism is really important. We're all being paid probably to be here today. And so that true, deep, long-lasting commitment from people to be engaged often comes with a career and a career opportunity and pathway. So I think that's what I have. I'm happy to take questions in the chat as they come up.
Yes, thank you so much, Roseanne. And thank you both. I see there's been a back and forth in the chat already with some of these questions being answered. So thank you, Kate and Jessica, for taking the time to really answer some of these questions. And I know Roseanne, we'd hope that we could have some more time to have you all interact in the chat with Roseanne, but we do have I want to move us along so we can have some time for you all to meet within your teams for this breakout activity, but please do drop those questions in the chat for Roseanne, and we will get those routed to her. And so with that, just want to show, can we just show some love in the chat for our presenter today? Thank you very much for coming and sharing your experience and the great work you're all doing. And we wish we could, I'm sure if we had Q&A, we'd be spending about another 30 minutes digging into more of these questions. So thank you all. So yes, I wanted to move us along. So it's now kind of time from our team breakout activities, where you'll get a chance to kind of reflect on today's presentations, share your insights with one another in your multi-stakeholder teams. So in just a few minutes, your teams will be able to join a breakout room and follow kind of a set of prompts from your action support tracker to kind of guide your team around just some shared discussion. With the time we have remaining, we'll have about probably 15 minutes within your breakout rooms to follow just a couple prompts. And I'll drop in the chat some instructions for our breakout activity. But with the next 15 minutes in your multi-stakeholder teams, introduce yourself if necessary, but really with starting the conversation off with kind of what were some of those key insights from today's session, 5 minutes talking through that. And then kind of servicing what are some surprising informations that stood out to you, and then wrapping things up with kind of how you might be applying these insights and kind of knowledge from today into your community, within your own work, and then just some closing and final next steps. But in a second, I'm going to go ahead and drop the breakout activity instructions in the chat, along with a link to your action support tracker if you don't have that already. All righty, welcome back. Let's wait for everybody to get back in. Okay, looks like we have everybody back. Well, thank you to everyone. I know it was only a short time that you could be together, but we're going to continue to try and find and hold space for us to have some cross-learning, not only just within your teams, but across each of the multi-stakeholder teams as well. So just before we close out, I just want to take a moment to give you a preview of our next session next week. And just to note that next week's session is actually on a Wednesday. I know we're having Thursday sessions going forward, but this one will be the only one that's on a Wednesday, September 25th. It's another 90-minute session. We'll have guest speakers from the city of Tucson, the Storm to Shade program. Brad Lancaster will be joining us as well, and we'll be hearing from Corvallis and Prince George counties on their community-based partnership model. And so just a couple kind of next steps and reminders to the team wranglers. Please synthesize any session 2 insights and action items and any thoughts that might have and really interesting points of discussion that you all had, if capturing that in your action support tracker and then just sharing with those and circulating it around amongst your team. Also, if we can please, after the Zoom session today, you'll be prompted with a survey. That feedback is really critical to us. If you could please take some time to fill that out for at least just 2 questions, which will help us really improve the structure and flow for the next sessions. So thank you all again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, welcome back. Let's wait for everybody to get back in. Okay, looks like we have everybody back.